4:45, we will have lunch, and then Kraig will take 15 minutes to grab lunch, and then we'll have a working lunch the second part to Kraig's time. So Kraig, thank you for being here.
I appreciate it. Yep, it's great to be here.
Good.
How's everybody? Good?
Great.
All right. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. Now, a lot of people can say that, and they just use it and say it all the time. It's trite. They just throw it out there. But this is an honor and a pleasure. I know a lot of you in here. You know my kids. I will be full disclosure. Haley and Trent at Mizzou were like, "Dad, that's so cool. You're going to TFA to speak." Kendall, the 16-year-old rising junior, said, "Dad, please, don't be embarrassing, because this is really important for me, and I really don't care about your deal." So I'm used to that. I want you to interrupt me. I'm used to that as well. You all have a booklet on your table. You can rip the staple off it or leave it however you want. There's some blank sheets in there to take notes, and I would ask you as well at the end to write a review. What you thought about it, what you learned, the biggest thing your takeaway is. Now, before we get started, you see the title, Communication to Influence. Now, I saw on a sheet of paper up there, somewhere on a table, the word influencer or influence, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to have fun. This is interactive and engaging. I want you all to do something for me. This is the hashtag. How many of you all have your cell phones? I always encourage photos, tweets. We're going to create a conversation. You need to put hashtag TFA leadership on any tweet you use today during this talk. And if everybody doesn't tweet at least once about your aha moment or something that you learned, you're in trouble, okay? So that's what we're gonna do. I wanna show you social media. I wanna show you the effects of creating a conversation and using your influence to make a difference and put TFA into a bigger spotlight. We're gonna rise above ordinary. That's what we're gonna talk about. Here's my hashtag / Twitter handle if you wanna follow, and I hope you will. So here's the big question. What's your story? What's the TFA story? What's your personal story? Have you ever thought about it? A lot of people haven't done that. It's uncomfortable. They don't dig deep. Every time I do a one-on-one consulting brand build with somebody in specifics, we dig deep on their personal story. So I want you to consider, as we talk today, what your story is. And a bigger part of that is actually why people would want to pay attention to you. So let me give you a little bit about my story. Maybe this will help. I'm the guy or kid, once upon a time, at age 7, that knew exactly what he wanted to do. I got my start in broadcasting with a tape recorder in my own room. I was the guy that did play-by-play of Chicago Bulls games, Blackhawks games, Bears games. Said, "We'll be back with more right after this. Today's Bulls game is presented by Coca-Cola." I have the tapes still. Now, I don't have the tape recorder, but I have the tapes. So I did that starting at about age 7. All my buddies knew it. All I ever wanted to do was be a broadcaster. Got my start in marketing in a different way. I was the kid in the neighborhood that felt like the Tribune and the Sun-Times weren't doing a good job of covering the Cubs, the White Sox, the Bulls, the Bears. So I actually wrote my own newspaper. And that was at about age 12, probably. So I wrote about the White Sox, I wrote about the Bulls, I wrote about the Bears. I went and made photocopies at the local library, Thomas Ford Memorial, Western Springs, just outside Chicago. And I delivered it on my street. So I needed people to get the full story. So I was marketing myself, I was marketing my newspaper, I had the paper route, the whole bit. I went to high school at Lyons Township outside Chicago. I knew at that point, I played football, basketball, baseball, like many do at TFA. And I actually quit the basketball team my senior year because I knew I wasn't going to play. We were ranked number 2 in the state. I wasn't going to be playing a lot. And I wanted to do the games on the radio because that's all I ever wanted to do. I was the guy that did play-by-play on family vacations while we were driving. Look at that boat to our left. It's very impressive. My brother was like, "Shut up, this is ridiculous." But I did that. That is true story, true story. Play-by-play, 8 hours to Wisconsin where we would go. I'm also the guy that called every sportscaster in Chicago and said, "How did you get there? How did you find your way into the spotlight? Why am I watching you on Channel 7, Channel 2, Channel 5? And what's really cool about it is a lot of those same guys were there when I got to Golf Channel, and we would bring our show on the road to Chicago for the BMW or whatever tournament, and they would come up to me going, let's talk golf. And I'm like, you're my idol, what are you talking about? And I'm not that cool, you're really cool. So that was a thrill for me, but I never stopped pushing the envelope. I knew it was going to be difficult to get there. So there's a lot of people that say, wow, he was the kid at 7 that knew where he wanted to go. My first job out of school at Mizzou was Columbus, Georgia. I was there for a year. I went to Fort Myers, Florida for 2 years. I then went to Kalamazoo, Grand Rapids for 4 years. And at that point, the Golf Channel came calling. And my agent sent the tape. And I remember going into the news director. They flew me down first class for the interview to be one of the originals. They flew me back coach. Now, I thought that might have been a sign. I didn't really know. They gave me 24 hours to make a decision. And I said, why not? I'm a risk taker. This is going to be incredible. So I went into my news director. I said, I'm leaving. I'm going to the Golf Channel. He said, the Golf Channel? You're going to report news from the Gulf? I said, no, it's golf. It's all golf all the time, 24 hours. And lo and behold, in 1995, when we launched on January 17th, in 10 million homes, who knew that it would grow to 120 million? But I was there 17 and a half years to build that brand, to represent as an ambassador, and to help make a difference for a small cable network that is now the #1 property in sports for NBC Sports Group. It is. It's the most successful sports cable channel of all of them. It was really the first. It was groundbreaking. Never thought I'd get the opportunity to go to the LPGA and be a sports executive. That came when I least expected it. I was told, hey, you can help make a difference to help the LPGA, and I'm going to talk about that in just a little bit. My thought process was, you know what? Executive jobs in sports, I always thought about wanting to do it. Don't fall in the laps of guys who wear makeup and read teleprompters for a living. If I don't take this opportunity, I may never get it again, and I could always go back and do TV later if I don't like it. If I love it, I'm off to the races, and my portfolio is diversified. That's what I did, 5.5 years. I've always had a desire to help. I've always had a desire to give back. I've got 30-some years in my field, and now I want to take it to corporations, to schools, to students, to faculty, to people, to help them understand the importance of communication and delivering a story. And that's what we're going to do today. So, I ask you this question, and it's not that easy. Who are you, and why should we care? Now, that sounds a little harsh. We could also say, why should people pay attention? But think about it from TFA's perspective. Who are you, TFA? And why should people care? What will make you stand out? How will you rise above ordinary? How will you get noticed? So, Grace and Merritt, where are you? Come on up. Great to see you.
Great to see you.
You're officially scared now, aren't you? And everybody in this room is now on high alert, okay? Hopefully somebody's going to take a picture of her doing this because this is her big moment on the stage. Hashtag what?
Leadership.
Thank you so much. Are you on Twitter?
Yes. Yes.
I love that. Okay. Who are you and why should these people care?
As a part of TFA?
As a part of life. What is your story?
Oh my goodness. I am a, oh my goodness, I'm a mom, first and foremost. I am passionate about early childhood. I am a relationship builder, and I believe in the power of connection and helping children feel safe and loved.
I like that. Very good, very well done. Will Cohen. I knew you weren't getting away with this.
Who picked these names?
Will Cohen, I want you to tell all these people right here, who are you and why should you care?
I'm a Christ follower. I'm a people-driven person. I learned earlier that I'm energetic. And passionate about growing athletics at TFA.
Okay. And your greatest value is?
I would say my greatest value is my love for people.
Okay. Thank you very much, Will. You can have a seat. I don't do that to embarrass people. I do it to bring up an interesting point. You put people on a stage, you put people in front of other people, whether it's sales, whether it's any kind of a talk, and you ask them to make a connection, and it's about your story. It's about you. And most people don't think about talking about themselves because it sounds uncomfortable. It sounds like you're braggadocious. It becomes something that people shy away from, whether they like the stage or not. Number one fear among Americans is what? Number two is what?
Spiders.
Number two is what? Close.
Snakes.
Death. 41%, 19%. So basically, people would rather die than speak. That's amazing. What I tell people is you should die for the opportunity to stand in front of people and deliver your message. It's a gift, it's an opportunity, not an obligation, and not everybody gets the stage. What will you do with it? Okay? What's your story? Now, this is the time. This is the time for each and every one of you. And I want you to repeat after me because you probably haven't thought about this, but I'm going to get you to dig deep today about yourself and your value and your brand and what you're going to do for TFA. Please repeat after me. I am the Chief Marketing Officer of my own brand. Ready? Go. I am Chief Marketing Officer of my own brand. No question about it. Have you ever thought that? Probably not. Maybe a few of you. Now on social media, as you're posting things today, could be on Facebook. I hope I see tons of pictures. I hope I see tons of posts. I hope they say something about the value that's being brought today, the event that you're all a part of. That hashtag can live all day, the rest of the day, and you can talk about anything because I'll look back at it and see how well we did. All right? Now, pictures, by the way, are the quickest way to get people to stop. Video as well. Just writing something doesn't get people to stop. It looks like spam when you're scrolling through. You've got to find a way to make people pay attention to you, and that's also a part of our talk today. So you are the Chief Marketing Officer of your own brand. Everybody is an ambassador for the TFA story. Everybody got a watch? All right, I want you to look at your watch. When I say go, I want you to start counting. Ready, set, go. Stop. How much time is that?
6 seconds.
Oops. I am putting you on the clock. That was 8 seconds. That's all you've got. 8 seconds to make an impression. That's the world we live in today. 8 seconds. By the time I got up here and started my talk, you'd already sized me up. Head to toe, first words out of my mouth, most important thing I can do. Am I connected? Am I engaged? Am I smiling? Am I having fun? Am I nervous? Do I look like I don't want to be here? How fast can I get it done? You all dealt with the same thing, correct, Grayson? All right, 8 seconds, that's all you've got. That is a fact. I'm not making it up. People will do that to you. It's probably unfair, but it's reality. So we've got to bust through that. We've got to make a difference quickly. The other thing is, we live in a world of short attention spans. You all know that. You're working with millennials every day. Every day. 10 minutes might even be a little on the high side. In 10 minutes, I can change channels to another sporting event. I can decide if I am engaged by this movie. I can decide if Steve Whitaker has got me hooked, or if I'm going to sit next to Brian Rose to hear about the latest trends in athletic endeavors. Or anything else that he wants to talk to me about. 10 minutes. That's all you've got. Now the 8-second thing is how long it will also take to read a tweet and actually comprehend it. Read a post. It's not a lot of time. Big challenge. Big challenge for you all as leaders in front of people to make that difference and make it quickly. So the challenge for all of us is how do we get noticed? What's our story? And how do we get noticed? There are a lot of competition out there. There's a lot of folks out there trying to do the same thing you're doing. Great schools, great leadership, great athletic teams, great people who are a part of building an entire organization like the First Academy. I challenge you to think about you as a part of that, and not just the school. Because think about it. If I can get you to get noticed, and your brand goes, so too goes the brand of the school. The more we share, the bigger our brand becomes. The less we share or offer, the more anonymous we shall remain. It's your choice. It's your choice. Think big, think boisterous, think not braggadocious, but proudly boastful about your accomplishments, your value, your story, and how it relates to where you work. That's what we're all trying to do, is get noticed. Now this isn't easy. So business brands, we could talk about corporate or we could talk about your business. You are, after all, a business. You're in the business of academics, you're in the business of education, you're in the business of growing leaders and having people go succeed at the next level. So in business, if we're trying to get noticed, we've got to put out our products and our services. We've got to push that out. We've got to tell people why we're special. We've got to talk about our corporate results, or in your case, the results of your students. Is everybody getting into college? Is everybody succeeding on tests? Is everybody succeeding on the academic fields? We have to push that out. On athletic brands, this could be talking about colleges or your athletic department, Will Cohen. Teams and athletes that we promote. We've got to push them out there to get them noticed. If we get them noticed, the school gets noticed. It's not just about them, but if Garrett Williams is a known commodity, so to speak, as a graduate ambassador of the school, that's a win for the school. Don't forget about him when he goes to the next level. Keep him connected to the organization so you can promote your current athletes as a recruiting tool. Once they leave, they actually become more important to your school, not less. They've been through the story. Records and achievements are big in athletics. How do you push it out there? Not just numbers. What are the trends? Where are the success stories? Maybe people don't know about cross country or women's golf. Maybe that doesn't get the attention of a football program or a baseball program. So when it comes to personal brands, I highlighted this less because we don't often think of ourselves. We think of the bigger picture. I spoke at KPMG in New York City a couple of weeks ago, and obviously they were talking corporate results, shareholders, all the different things. I spoke to the top 100 corporate communications folks who think very, very conservatively in their business. So they're not going to be pushing themselves. But if we're pushing personal brands, that's our top people, that's our top athletes, top students, right? Individual skills and accomplishments. Who are the 5 students at TFA that have made the biggest impact in academics as a senior or a junior? What are we doing with them? How are we promoting them? Are we putting them in front of the camera to read about their story? To put it out there for other people? To bring more families in? Individual skill and accomplishments of those personal brands, and leadership. Those are leaders. And aren't we in the business of bringing more leaders to the table after they graduate from TFA and putting them into schools? I believe so. I believe so. That's our job. Let them have a voice. Let them have an opinion just like you all. That's how we grow. That's how we put it out. We can't be afraid. We cannot be afraid. In communication, there is a very important word called the message. The message is not one of many things. The message is the only thing that matters. It is the only thing. It's what every corporation is trying to figure out. What's our message? What are we pushing out? It's what every athletic university is trying to figure out. I have a great opportunity this coming Sunday to do the kickoff keynote for COSIDA, which is the College Sports Administrators and Athletic Directors, SIDs in Orlando. Each of them is a university we're a part of. A lot of competition, right? How does Rutgers get noticed in the Big Ten? There's a lot of other schools named Michigan and Ohio State and Penn State. They've got a challenge, right? To me, that would be fun. So those are the things you have to think about. What's our message? How are we different? How are we unique? Go back to the green shoes. How do we stand out? It's just not that easy. And I'll talk to you about the LPGA in just a minute because it very much is relevant to the story. So that's the only thing that matters in the world that we live in of all this noise that's going on out there. We got to bust through that. That's our job. How do we broadcast a compelling story? Now, this is one of the quotes that I remember most from my days in college. There are actually 2 of them in TV that I never have forgotten and have actually shaped a lot of my career. You cannot preach to anyone unless you get them into the church in the first place. So that message only works if we get them there to listen to it. How do we do that? That's not that easy. You got to be recruiters. You've got to have teasers. You've got to have ways to get people in front of you to actually listen and respond. Now, I always remembered that because when we did TV stories for the local news, Missouri is the only school in the country, by the way, that has an affiliate TV station that's associated and owned by the university, KOMU. So as a junior or senior, you actually get to be the reporter on the news at 6 o'clock and 10 o'clock. And then you try out to be an anchor for the morning cut-ins during the Today Show, the noon news, or the weekend. They don't put kids on 6 and 10 o'clock as an anchor. That'd be tragic. And we actually thought we were pretty good, and we actually were not very good at all. But I actually did that and anchored and reported and all that sort of stuff. And we would put together packages from Jefferson City at the state capitol or whatever it might have been, a Mizzou game. And we were told that first 15 seconds of that package, when the anchor throws to it, has to get my attention. If you're in the kitchen making dinner and the TV's in the living room, how do we get the person to come from the kitchen to the living room to go, I got that, that's cool. You don't have a lot of time. Go back to 8 seconds. Best video at the top. Best soundbite at the top. Hook me. Get me to pay attention to you. That's the job. So in your message at TFA, we've got to find a way to get people to pay attention in the first place amidst all the noise that's out there. So we've got to change the audience's environment in this noisy, crowded world of distraction to actually get them excited to focus. Because nobody focuses for very long anymore. Correct? We all struggle with that. If you're a teacher, that's probably your toughest challenge, is getting people to stay on point with you for 50 minutes. They're not used to that. They're not used to it at all. And it's becoming tougher and tougher and tougher. And as educators, you've got to think differently than you might have had to think 20 years ago, where every kid was probably scared of not paying attention. Now, they don't even read the newspaper. They're all YouTubers. They're not watching TV. So we've got to make people excited to focus. So the only people that you get to pay attention to you are those that you make pay attention, or can find a way to engage, connect, share your story, and hook them in. All right? There's some sheets that you have, and I'm not going to ask you to fill them out now, but you could perhaps do it over lunch. I'm giving them to you. If I was doing an individual workshop with your top 20 leaders, I'd go through this one by one. We don't have that kind of time because we have a bigger group and not that much time today. Perhaps we do it another time. But you'll see the opportunities for you to dig deep and to figure out your story, what you stand for, who you are. If I said Tim Tebow, I immediately know what he stands for. You know what his brand is, correct? What do you stand for? What do the last 10 posts on Facebook say about you? What do the last 10 tweets say about you? Do they provide value? Are they pushing out the right message? Are you consistent with it? Those things are all important. We got to make people focus. So we need a strong message, right? Who are we? What we do? How we do it? Those are the most important things. Or are they? What's missing? Very important. What's missing? Why? Anybody else?
Why it matters?
Why it matters?
Why it's important to someone else?
Guess what? You're all right. Every one of you. Why we do it. Why we do it. Oh my gosh, this thing's sensitive. Really sensitive. Oh my gosh. Okay, so the why it matters is the most important thing. You can talk all you want to about the how and the what and all those things, but it's why. Why TFA? why your story matters. Why should people pay attention? When I brought you all up here, why are they going to pay attention to Grayson? Why are they going to pay attention to Will? Why is he going to get them to lock in on his message? You can talk all you want about the hows, the what's, the whatever, but everybody in an audience today is selfish. I can promise you, you're thinking, why does this matter to me today? Why am I here? What's my takeaway? Why is this relevant? So when I talk to athletes, it's the why. You can sit up there all you want to in a press conference, but you've got to get them to engage with you. Why, if I've got a family of 3 and I go to a golf tournament with 144 players teeing it up, why should I follow you? What makes you different? Got 143 other choices. What's your brand? How are you going to make a difference? You going to make an impact with me today? You going to represent the overall brand? You going to create one for yourself? Because if you do, you're going to rise, and everybody else rises too. People would say, Kraig, the LPGA, what a great thing to build that brand of the LPGA. Yes, but I didn't promote the LPGA. I felt like we needed to do something different. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You can think about it. But the story, I'll tell you in a minute, the story is your story. Your school story, your individual story. That's what's important. And that's what we have to get out when it comes to messages. Okay? So, Brian Rose, your turn. Who are you?
Nice to meet you, sir.
It's a pleasure to meet
Pleasure to
you.
meet you.
Yes.
Great to have you here.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This is your stage, and I want you to own it. Who are you? And why should they care?
I was raised in northwestern Pennsylvania on a farm, and God took me from that to 30 years of Christian ministry.
Okay. What's your greatest value?
I love people, and I think people know that. And I try to make them comfortable and let them know they're the most important thing.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. I'm going to critique you on one thing. Jane Knuth, you're next.
This morning.
You
I'd
know
like to do this.
how many people in an interview opportunity will say, I'm a people person? And I challenge people on the other side of the desk when I would interview them to go deeper. Because everybody's a people person. I haven't had one person that was 27 years old that was getting their first job or trying to get their first job said, I'm a people person. I work hard. I try to make a difference. I will do this, I will do that. I want you to dig deeper and figure out what your true value is. Inside of each and every one of us, we have an inner genius. Somebody's got one that's different than somebody else. You have to be yourself. Number one, because everybody else is taken anyway. And number two, because that's what builds your brand and that's what allows you to stand out. And if Steve Whitaker's the only guy that knows the message in this school, or Brian Rose, we're missing the boat. If the commissioner and the chief communications officer are the only ones that know the message at the LPGA, we've got how many other ambassadors that don't know the story? And they're just as big and powerful. Okay? Jane, who are you? Why should we pay attention?
I'm a local girl, I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a follower of Jesus.
What's your greatest value?
I get value in myself when I help others excel.
Okay. The biggest accomplishment you've had in your TFA career is what?
I could sit there and say state championships, but that's not it. It's the relationship I've built with the people I work with
Okay.
and the kids.
Thank you very much. And I know that's a fact and true. So let's talk about personal delivery and an effective message. I've got a list of things that I feel like are the most important keys in doing this. I spelled Kraig's list a little bit differently. Number one, that message is clearly defined. It is not big, broad, and difficult to understand. Clearly defined, first and foremost. Number two, okay, this is getting annoying. It's concise. It's concise. And that's spelled wrong. Concise is very important. Very important. It's got to be tight. And I'll tell you why in a second. It's got to be memorable, and it's got to be repeatable. We have to remember what the message is. And you've got to be able to go out there, tell it to somebody else, and have them repeat it. You've got to be able to make this message transferable to all those that are following the TFA brand. Important. It's got to create emotional connection. That's why your story is big. That's why you're so important, and you don't necessarily realize it. Every message has to create an emotional connection. So I'll tell you a quick story. When I interviewed people at the LPGA, we would bring people in, and I would always be last. This is for my department. I hired 9 people. They would go around the building, and they would touch every department that they would work with. And then they would come in at the end, and I had a whiteboard similar to that, you know, the ones you can hang on the wall. And I called it my 3 things board. I had 3 things. 1, 3 things you learned about the LPGA during the interview process. 2, 3 things that set you apart from any other candidate that I might be interviewing. Number 3, 3 things that you've learned about the LPGA that you think we could actually improve on and how you're going to make that difference. So I give them the whiteboard, they go sit at a table, I sit and do emails. I go, you got 10 minutes, don't overthink it. They write them all down. Here you go, Mr. Kann, these are my things. I go, yeah. Now I want you to present it to me. I can tell you without question that I can identify the right person for the job in communications based on how they connect and how they can share that in public. If you're going to be an ambassador for me, you need to be not only an owner of ideas or an idea factory, you need to be able to communicate those ideas and get people to lock in and pay attention and understand that that is important. You have to be able to engage people. You have to make me believe you are the right person to deliver that message. Because that's what we all are at the end of the day. We need to create an emotional connection. Okay. Officially frustrated with this. So, who delivers your story? Who delivers your story? And how can it be persuasive? There is one word, and it's this. It's influence. Now, in a verb form, capacity to have an effect on the character development or behavior of someone or something, or a noun, a person or thing that sways opinion to create influence. The thing is, you have to have it to get people to pay attention to it. If everything is noisy, we have to feel that we're bigger and think outside of where we walked in this door today and understand that we are influencers. Each and every one of you has that opportunity to be an influencer. Could be my battery. You want those? Yes. Will that work?
Sure.
Let's switch. You work? Okay. Thank you so much. Well done. I know your story now. You're tremendous. All right, so influence is the big word. Brand influencers. You know, influencer marketing is a really big deal right now. Everybody's talking about that. It's like the trendy, cool thing. I went out and did SAP's kickoff meeting for all their marketing people in Phoenix. And their topic that was so hip and so cool was brand influencers. Now, most people, when they talk about influencing the brand, they hire actors and celebrities and famous people. Peyton Manning's a brand ambassador for DirecTV and Papa John's and all that sort of stuff. They'll go find media personalities. They're big and everybody knows them. Scott Van Pelt, friend of mine, he's actually promoting a bunch of different things. Good for him. And then you've got athletes that sign up and will promote. All these people are great. The big ones today, and maybe you don't know about this, is people are hiring people that actually do blogs and social media. They find those people to write the content and then actually promote it and then track it and then get people to lock in. So what people forget is, I got to reset your thinking. You're thinking about all those people, right? And we're forgetting the most important influencers that are out there in every corporation or organization. You can hire Peyton Manning all you want to, but you've got to have a brand too. You've got to build your own. You have to put yourself on LinkedIn. You've got to write content about the great things TFA is doing. You've got to put yourself out there for people to notice who you are. Because if you don't blow your own horn, there's no noise. There's no noise. Communicating the brand, you've got to pitch what makes it unique, fascinating, and identifiable. So you know exactly what these brands are. I couldn't pick 4 that you would understand or know bigger, right? AT&T, Coke, Starbucks, everybody knows those. But if we're talking about you as the communicator, we've got to identify what makes you unique and how you can stand out. And that's how you've got to think. You've got to dig deeper and why you can make that difference. Where are your strengths? What is your greatest value? How can you add that to the school and make the school bigger, you bigger? You want to be bigger. This is what you want. There's a story about a guy who's going on a jog in the Northeast on a fall blustery day, and he's in this subdivision, and all these trees are starting to change. There's a lot of green at the moment, and then there's this wall filled with green, thick Wrigley Field. As he's running through and the wind blows, right in front of him lands a vibrant red leaf. And that is the only thing that he noticed on his run, because everything else in the background was green. Green wall, green trees, one vibrant red leaf. My challenge to each and every one of you is to figure out how you can be the red leaf. What makes you different? What are your skills? Where do you succeed the most? What's the greatest value you can provide for this organization? How can I be the red leaf among all the other noise out there to get noticed and make an impact? That's the goal. Now, influence is obviously a great opportunity for people. I've had a wonderful career of opportunity to be in roles of influence, whether I was speaking at the LPGA, whether I was building the brand of the Golf Channel, whether I was at the Olympics in Rio doing press conferences this past year, or whether I'm conducting seminars and the other things. All those are great opportunities. That's what you need to find your opportunity. Now, I'm going to take this to the LPGA, hashtag TFA leadership, by the way, and I'm going to show you the biggest thing that framed my entire tenure there was this magazine right here, that exact copy. That was the Monday, the week after the World Series. America's pastime, right? Giants swept the Tigers that year. What's on the cover? The NFL. America's pastime is a line at the top of Sports Illustrated? Are you kidding me? Since when, after the World Series, is there not a picture of a guy hitting a home run or the players jumping all over each other or whatever it might be? I couldn't believe it. So my awakening was that attention is not a given no matter how big your organization is. How do you think the commissioner of Major League Baseball felt that week? J.J. Watt felt pretty darn good. But if you're an MLB, you've got problems. We cannot wait for other people to talk about us. If you do that, you better have a great degree of patience and a lot of time on your hands. You can't wait for people to take notice. You've got to make them take notice. Got that? We can't wait for people to take notice. We've got to make people take notice. Not telling you to be that hard on people, but we've got to be creative in our communications, strategic in our communications. We've got to take outside the box. That box needs to go flying into the ocean or the nearest lake, river, or whatever, and we've got to think differently. We've got to make people pay attention and focus with all the noise that's going out there. So, at the LPGA, no different really than TFA or any other organization. We've got to create product awareness. How big are the players? What's the brand? What are we deciding to do? We've got to promote the bigger picture. We've got to sell those players. The players make the brand. I needed to find a way to get Michelle Wie or Inbee Park or Stacey Lewis or Paula Creamer to be able to walk down the streets of New York City and be stopped. Just like Tiger Woods would, Phil Mickelson would, Ricky Fowler would, any of those athletes. Because they would. I love that. That's great. We had to establish a following. We had to get people talking about it. We had to create influencers. That was the whole goal. At the LPGA, when I got there, the organization had a depleted schedule of 24 events. Actually, that's why I took the job. If the PGA Tour would have called me, and I've told Steve this, and I've probably told Brian this, I wouldn't have gone. They sail along like a ship, no problems. But this was a challenge. Low confidence, the media perception was not good. We had a survey right in front of me. That was my job to change it. Why did he hire me? Probably because I knew everybody in the media, because I was that guy. So that was the fun part of it. Public perception, not great. So what did we do? We changed our whole marketing and communication strategy. Every bit of it. I created a player communications committee. 8 players, big names. They got to say, Kraig, great idea, run with it. Kraig, decent idea, let's tweak it. Kraig, terrible idea, it's the worst I've ever heard, we got to start over. I was fine with all that. But I made all those big name players, none of whom said no. Michelle Wee was on it the first go around, Stacey Lewis was on it, Brittany Lincecum was on it, I had Asian-born players, I had European-born players, complete array of what we had on the tour. More than 30 countries represented on the LPGA. So they were all a part of it. And we went to dinner once a month, and they knew everything that I knew that I could share. So they were a part of that. Player agents met with all of them as well. Because if I need to get the players, I need to go to the agents. They need to be my influencers. Everybody on tournament operations. Now we've heard of like beat systems like fire, police, all that sort of stuff. You know, news people hound that. Well, guess what? Everybody in my department was in charge of X number of tournaments. And they created that connection. So when Portland called, they didn't get the random person that answered the phone that day. They got an X communications person that created a relationship. That's what's important. Media members had a beat system as well. I wasn't worried about the Golf Channel, Golf Digest, Golf Week, Golf World. They got to cover us anyway. They're not going to a skeet shooting tournament. Right? They had to cover golf. But I sure cared about the New York Times, USA Today, Sports Illustrated, and some of the others you could imagine. Because they had a choice to make each and every week. So I rolled out the red carpet. Over-deliver, give them more than they expected when they came in the first place. How do we call them in advance and go, what do you want set up? How can we do it for you? Every internal staff member knew the same thing about our communications message. So we did presentation skills seminars. That was important. We got the message to everybody. Everybody knew our story. An ambassador program for all the players. I sat down with them, certain players, probably 15 total, but I handpicked them based upon who they knew. So they would have 6 or 7 or 8 other friends, and I only needed 15 if you do that math. But they needed to know how many countries we're playing in on our schedule. How many countries were televised in? 107 each week. One player said 12. Nice guess. All right, so they didn't even know the whole story, but they had to learn it. Media coaching. I did it for all of our players on all levels. So the lower level AAA players knew it when they got there. That was really important. And then the fan following, we did live chats, we did, tweet at me and all these different things to engage people and create connection. That's what you can do. The organization now, rebuilt relationships, a bolstered tournament schedule with 35 events. I'm not taking credit for that. We had a great leader, Mike Wan, the commissioner of the LPGA, thought outside the box, actually did so many great things. It was fun to be a part of all that. But fresh message delivery was the most important thing I could take and make an impact with, and create a group of influencers. So the LPGA now is much different. This I saved, and I will always love that. That is the result of a lot of hard work on the front of USA Today. We were actually nominated in 2015 among the top 5 finalists for Sports Organization of the Year. That's getting noticed. We didn't win, but we won. We didn't win, but we won. And when we went to New York and got our picture taken and sat in front of all these great organizations amidst the NHL, MLS, the NFL, to be one of 5 and have them play the video of our victories, that's what you all need to do. Why is TFA bigger than any school in the state of Florida, regardless of class? We merchandised our media. I think you probably know what that means. We took every great media hit that we got and figured out how we can use it to get our message out. So how does this all apply to you? You all are influencers. Whether you walked in here or not, you were hand-chosen to be here. Just like I was hand-chosen to stand up here, you're hand-chosen as a part of the greatest leadership group at this school to make a difference. And now you need to think that way when you walk out the door. And you need to know that story. That's what drives the ship at any school or any organization. Knowing the story. Stand out through executive presence. Now, you all are executives. For me, you're all executives because you're the highest of the high at the school. We could take the coaches of the teams that are recognizable, that's great. But executive presence, your personal philosophy, you have one, that's on your sheets. Think about it. What is it? What is it? I've got a black book that I use for all of my tweets. They are all my thoughts. I've got 116 of them that are written in there. Every one of them is 140 characters or less. I did it while I was on vacation at the beach to kill time. I wrote my thoughts down on all these different topics. Okay? They were thoughts on media coaching. There were thoughts on presentation skills coaching. There were thoughts on why the stage is important and that the microphone is not a prop, it's a brand builder. X, Y, Z. Okay? And I challenge everybody to do that. Go home. You're educators. What are your thoughts? They have shaped every blog I've written. I've written over 170 blogs. Every one of those is the chapter of a book. So when the book comes out, I don't have to work that hard. Okay? But all of those are thought-provoking, thought leadership. I challenge you to dig deep to find out what you stand for and where you can be that influencer to get your organization recognized. You will find as you write them that you do have your own style. You have many experiences that you never thought about before because you're going to have to challenge yourself to come up with them. If you write 10 or 15 and suddenly that's what you're posting, that's value content. Content is king in today's world, and you've got to provide value or you're just somebody else's spam. That message is important. And then how do you deliver it? So, being unique is going to get you noticed. That's what it takes today. You can't be ordinary. You got to be extraordinary. My kids are so sick of me saying that, I don't care. I don't care. Whenever I drop them off in the car line, which I'm not allowed to be anywhere near anymore, okay? It was have a great day today, and make sure you make it a great day for one other person. They got sick of that too. I don't care. But you got to find a way to separate yourself from the other students. I love talking to colleges. They sit next to the people that they're comfortable with, and they don't realize when they walk into the room that those people they're sitting next to are their competition. I went to school with 30 people in my broadcast class, and they go, hey, did you send your tape to Boise? Yeah, I did. You? Yep. Did you send your tape to Topeka? Yep. 3 other people raised their hand. How am I going to get the job? I got to find a way to over-deliver. I got to find a way to get noticed, or I'm not going to get that job in Columbus. So that's what we have to do. We got to connect with the audience. We got to pretend like there's a globe there, and we're putting headsets on everybody we talk to that's connected with your school. And you're putting headphones on them and making them take in your world. Think of their head as a globe. That's what they're listening to. The TFA story. We take them in that world, we let others share the story. Who knows who William Dawes is? Who knows who Paul Revere is? Did you guys know that they both did the same thing on the same night? One took the northern route and one took the southern route. Paul Revere, member of the Rotary Club, had a YMCA membership, he had a bunch of magazine subscriptions, he went to speak at every function in the community. Everybody knew Paul Revere. William Dawes, he wasn't involved in anything. He was just a guy riding on a horse. He had no connection. You don't even know who he is. But they both did it. And Paul Revere's the one everybody remembers. So how do you become that person? How do you become that red leaf? How do you let others share your story? Because you can do that. And if you do, you're the real influencer. You're selling your brand, and TFA wins. And so do you, because you climb up the LinkedIn profile. It's not about who leaves or becomes bigger or better. People say, what's the greatest thing that you accomplished at the LPGA? That is so easy for me. It's not the stuff I shared there. It's the fact that 6 people off my team that I hired all were promoted or recruited for bigger or better opportunities. And I couldn't pay them. That's a victory. Because at the end of the day, we're all mentors, right? We're all influencers, or we're trying to be, or we have that opportunity to be. So I challenge you to dig deep. We're going to talk more about some other things after lunch, but that's the story. That is the story. You've got to find a way to get noticed. And you are far bigger than you ever thought you could possibly be. Let's have lunch.
Thank you, Craig. So what we'll do is if I could ask you to move fairly quickly, because we'll take a 15-minute recess to grab lunch, grab your plates, bring them back in, and Craig's going to go ahead and begin our second session of the workshop here shortly in the next few minutes. So, Brian Rose, would you mind praying for our
Let's do it.
lunch?
Father God, thank you for a wonderful, wonderful.
I'm trying.
All right, we're gonna get the second part going so we can keep you all on time.
I've never seen it.
Question for you all. How many of you have a business card in your wallet, in your purse right now? Each and every one of you has a title on that card, I'm sure. And I'm asking you to change the mindset from whatever that title is to entrepreneur. Because if we boil it all down, that's what each one of us truly is. You're an entrepreneur of your own ideas, your own thoughts, your own classroom, your own speaking opportunity. You are an opportunist. You are an entrepreneur who can make a difference. Anybody have any idea why I have these?
Your brand.
All brand recognition. I stole it from Golf Channel because we use them on the set all the time. Every network uses them now. You see it. Not telling you what to do, but it's an opportunity for speaking engagements to have notes, to put it in front of people, especially when you're out in an industry opportunity, not necessarily at the First Academy. When you're at the First Academy, everybody knows you represent the First Academy. But if you're out on a panel and you're in front of an audience that can get your brand out, that might be through a group of educators or higher-ups, that's great. A shameless plug, but I wouldn't be standing here with these slides if not for presentation partners. They actually contacted me to be a part of all these talks. And so they are in Atlanta, and they are awesome. And I will leave it at that. We're going to talk about executive presence here this afternoon as we go into phase 2, leadership and elevated communication. So if you've ever been to my website, canadvisory.com, that's what I talk about. Elevating communication. Elevate. Next level. Higher than you thought you could go. Making a difference. And how can you do that as a leader? How can we take you from a position of where you are now to a position where your message is absolutely the most powerful and dynamic that it could possibly be? It's not that easy. It takes work. I do a seminar, or it's actually a workshop, called The Power of Presentation. It's long. It's a day and a half. And there's homework involved overnight. Because I will coach people into how to deliver their 3-minute, what I call a back pocket speech, that you can pull out whenever necessary. The 5.5 or 5-minute speech that you might get called up on stage that you do know you're going to give. Or the 45-minute keynote that requires a lot more thinking and thought process. Now, this afternoon, I'm going to go through some things about oral communication and also written communication to help each and every one of you. In the power of presentation, obviously the topic is communication and how we do that. Without question, communication skills are the greatest thing a true leader can have. They are. Families require it, students require it. You can't possibly communicate enough. And it is the link between ideas and action. That's what communication is. The link between ideas and action. Now, one other thing before I keep going. I follow this social media thing. I was in charge of it at the LPGA. We grew 900% over 4 years across all platforms. How many of you liked a tweet that was tweeted by somebody else in here? Today. Tip for you. Liking a tweet doesn't put it on the feed. All it does is make somebody feel good that you looked at it. Twitter has a thing called quote tweet or retweet. And quote tweet allows you to go up top and add to or provide your own thought to somebody else's thought, which creates what? Conversation. So I tell people, liking it is fine. Quoting it is a whole other thing. I've done it. I looked at your tweets, and I've actually quote tweeted a bunch of them back just to show you, and you'll see how you can start to create a bigger conversation. Because I want it on my feed to promote TFA. And if I'm smart as a speaker or a business person, my hope is that those of you at TFA that know somebody at Lake Highland, that know somebody that, if they happen to be following me, any of them, they're going, hey, what's TFA got here? What? They're raising their what? They're doing what? They're going to stand out? But that's what we're doing. So we're creating conversation. So the link between ideas and action, that's what communication is. Let's talk about oral communication, verbal communication. The art of standing on the stage, which I always tell people, when you have that opportunity, you need to own the stage. That stage is yours. It is a gift. Not everybody gets it. Players once upon a time would tell me, Kraig, I don't get the media attention. How come I'm not getting this speaking engagement? I had a great answer for him. What'd you do with the last opportunity you got? Did you have a story? Were you just a regular player? An athlete that just answered the questions that came your way? There's no such thing as a bad question. No matter what anybody says, in media, there is no such thing as a bad question. But there is definitely a bad answer. You acknowledge the question and you tell your story. I would ask the commissioner, what are we going to get out of this? What do you want people to walk out the door with? What are the 3 things that they need to leave with? That's what I challenge you with. What is your message? And that's what we're going to get into. Regardless of what the questions are, what do they need to know? Standing in front of people is an opportunity. The goal is to stand out when you get to stand up. And if you can stand out by having a message that matters, people take notice. People talk. People walk out. There's a walk-away message. There's a call to action. You can second-guess a lot of things about oral presentations. Everybody does it. I'll walk out of here at the end of the day, and I'm going to go, wish I would have done this. The one thing I will never, ever second-guess, if I do this properly, is preparation. Because that's what leads to the right message being delivered. That's why you're going to dig deep on your own. Our players had plenty of time, played in 15 different countries. I've flown to Korea, I've flown to Singapore. Those are long flights. You got time to dig deep and figure out what your story is. So that's the goal. Stand out when you stand up and have something to say of value. The message has to be valued where it doesn't get noticed. So I have a question for you all. Why do you think being exceptional matters so much as a speaker? By the way, don't let the conversation die on social media. I've already seen people liking it. Peyton Hopkins liked one of the tweets. Past student. Somehow my daughter even saw it. Why is being exceptional so important?
Competition?
Competition? Good answer.
There's so much out there.
What's that?
There's so much competition out there.
Correct. Everybody's fighting for airspace. Everybody's fighting to get noticed. Great book, Platform, Michael Hyatt. Unbelievably good. All right, How to Get Noticed in a Noisy World is the subtitle. Any other answers to that? Why being exceptional is so good? How many of you all would say that you are an exceptional public speaker? How many of you would say you're very good? Good. Average. Need help. Okay. So those who are good to great, that's where most people would like to be. You'd love to be exceptional. That's difficult to get there. Those who are at the bottom are clearly disadvantaged when they're trying to sell. Those who are great love every opportunity to be in a sales situation where 3 people are sitting in a room and they're going to go in one by one to present to somebody else, because they will absolutely thrive on that competition and they will love to step on the other person's neck because that's their strength. They know they've got it. So it's important to get the message across. Why? Number one reason, it's an opportunity to sell. That's the biggest thing you can do by being a great presenter. You have an opportunity to sell, not just yourself, the organization, and also the brand. So 3 things right there. You're a salesperson of your ideas, you're a salesperson of your organization, you're a salesperson of yourself. You all are going to walk out of here today, and you, whether I like it or not, are going to say something about Kraig Kann. I can't control that. We live in a society of gossip. You're either going to say, man, that was really riveting. That was an incredible presentation. I didn't expect that. Or, man, I like Patrick Barrett and everything, but why he brought Kraig Kann in here is absolutely mind-boggling to me. I didn't learn one thing. No matter what, when you walk out of a movie theater, you're going to remember the ending, and that's what you're going to say to somebody. And you are going to remember something about today, and you're going to tell somebody something. My job is to make you leave with a message, leave with some value, leave with an understanding that you can make a difference. So I've connected with you because at the end of the day, this isn't about me, this is about you. It's always about you. It's always about the audience. So, opportunity to sell, and you got the gift right there. It's also a chance to be an expert. If you're a salesperson, it's a chance to deliver revenue. In your case, it might be to raise funds. It's word of mouth marketing. Read everything you want right now about marketing. And there are a lot of organizations that are not putting a whole lot of money into commercials on television because people DVR and zip right through it. Nobody's watching TV as much as they once were because they're on YouTube. My kids don't even have cable anymore. They actually have Hulu and Netflix and YouTube. So it's a different world we live in. Effective word of mouth marketing, that's huge. That's people talking, that's Paul Revere. And it's a chance to raise your own value. Now, again, self-serving, but you are trying to raise your value. You should try to raise your value. You should try to be that perfect speaker for the organization and for yourself. Above all, always make sure of this. You're in the know. And by being in the know, I'm not just talking about knowing everything that's going on in the world. I'm talking about know your material. You need to know what that message is. You need to know who your audience is. I asked when I was going to do this, who's sitting there? I've got to know that. I always ask who the audience is because I got to connect to that audience. I've got to provide value to that audience. I need to know the environment. Now this sounds strange, but I will never do a talk without what I call a site survey. I need to know if I've got a podium with a microphone, and that's the only microphone I've got, and I'm locked down. I need to know if I can walk the room to engage in somebody or a conversation. I need to know if that's a stage or this. This is more intimate. A stage is a lot different. And the key when you've got a stage is to not talk down to people, it's to talk always to people. We have to make them feel connected to you. And you need to know your time frame. If I stood up here and went 2 hours on this segment right here, Patrick Barrett's going to walk out of the room and he's definitely going to have something to say about me. This guy is a show killer. All right? So you need to know the time frame. Are you doing a 45-minute talk? Then try to go 40. If you're doing an hour talk, try to go 50. So know those things. You need to know your desired outcome. Now this requires you to sit down and actually think about it before you ever do it. This is where the preparation comes in, and it's different preparation than you might think. What do you want people to say about you? What do you want people to walk out and tell somebody else? Who are they going to connect with? Who is their audience? What do you want them to remember? So that's another of my little lines. Make them remember what they're supposed to remember. Go back to the message. You have to tell them again, and tell them again. Remind them why they're there. What you want them to do, call to action. Where do you want them to go? Do you need them to maybe write a check? Do you need them to show up at the football game? Do you need them to hand in their handouts? What is it you need? What are you trying to do? And what they'll say about you. Because they will say something. So I'm giving you this, and I will actually send this entire little slide package so you'll have it. Just don't publish it. Speech outline. 3 ways to do the speech, whether it's 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 45 minutes. You've got the open. That's where you grab their attention. I had 8 seconds. I had 10 minutes to keep it. You've got to engage them quickly. Grab their attention. Is it a wow story? Is it a startling statistic? Is it a question? How am I going to engage you? How am I going to get you to actually pay attention? I know a way. I can call somebody out. And I can get them to talk. And once I do that, everybody else goes, oh my gosh, not me, please. You're on the edge of your seat. You are definitely paying attention to me. I've seen it. It's absolutely hilarious in a big room. And then people will come up to me afterwards and go, that was so great today. I really enjoyed watching so-and-so speak, and I am so glad you didn't call on me. And I will get people to pay attention quickly. All right? If you're ineffective at the beginning, you've handicapped your entire talk. Remember, you only get one shot to make a first impression. That is real. And it lives in public speaking. Number 2 is the body of the talk. That's what you're there to tell them. So if I dumb this down for you, and I make this the most simple way possible, I'm going to just say focus on 3 things. Big topic 1, some supporting anecdotes or stories that connect people, experiences. Big topic number 2, story, experience. It's like you go into an interview and somebody says, tell me about your time at X, Y, and Z. And then you say, oh, I did this, I did that, I did that. Okay, what was the toughest thing that you had to deal with? Tell me that story. That's what you have to be prepared to give them. Dive deeper, give them more than they expected. Flow and transition are big. Big. You don't want a power outage, as I said. And if you are good, you will create something that you have in your head if you forget, or if you have the power outage. Might be a statistic, might be a way to all of a sudden bring somebody up on stage till you can get your thought process back. 5 years ago, I hosted the opening ceremonies for the Solheim Cup in front of a worldwide audience on a stage in front of probably 5,000 people in Denver, Colorado. And I wrote the script, and I had the teleprompter. I didn't want the teleprompter. Because if the teleprompter goes down, I've dealt with that too, but I'm always prepared for it. And I actually, in that talk, reversed 2 paragraphs. But nobody knew that. Because I had a backup plan. If anything went wrong, nobody would have ever known. Nobody ever did know. You got to have that too. You got to think about what you would do if all of a sudden something went a little bit wrong. So the body of the talk is the big thing. All that, pretty simple, right? The close is where you really need to start thinking first. Because you have to leave them. That's the final thing. It's not a question, it's a statement. That's where you send them out with something big. If you're strong with it, it gives you leverage with your audience and people believe you. If it's weak and not powerful, that's probably part of the review you would write about that person. Didn't send me out charged and ready to jump over a wall. I didn't get enough out of it personally. So think about that. A transferable message. We talked about that earlier, that people are going to take to somebody else. Any questions on that? Keep it simple, stupid. Not that hard. It's really not. Don't get overwhelmed by the thought of having to do it. This is a strange question. What is the definition of public speaking? Anybody want to take a guess?
Speaking in front of people.
Speaking in front of people. What else? What's that? Dying? We'll get to that. Anybody else?
If you have an audience.
If you have an audience. Okay. I'm about to surprise It's a conversational form of communication. That's all it is. It's basically taking notes or written word and transferring it to somebody else through verbal talk and an opportunity to stand before somebody. It allows me to have gestures. It allows me to smile that you might not see in an email or some other form of communication. A conversational form of communication. That's what public speaking is. Now, people don't think about what that actually means day to day. A conversational form of communication, that's an expression of ideas and values. If I come up here with no values, no ideas, no opinions, we're not going to get much out of it. If I'm just straight across, I tell my kids all the time, write like you talk, and don't talk like it's written. You want to kill me as an audience member giving a speech? Go ahead and write it, and then stand there with a microphone like this with your head down and read it to me. I am absolutely unengaged. Allowing for nonverbal cues gives you that opportunity as well. And emotion that you're going to get from me or anybody else standing up here. If I coach public speaking for people, I'll talk about cadence and the power of pause, which people don't think about very much. But if I want to make you stop and think, I might hold and wait for that one big word or that one message. You all tweeted almost the same thing if you want to go back to the conversation. So clearly that message resonated, and I knew when I delivered it, people would either write it down or probably do it because they do it at every talk I do. But I also deliver that differently than others. Chance to put delivery in front of your content. So it's basically taking an email or something else, and now I'm delivering it to you in person. Think back to my interview process with the whiteboard. They gave me the content, now I'm saying, now you got to deliver it to me. Because if I want you to stand up on stage and interview Michelle Wee or some other player, and I'm not doing it, I did all the ones that were on TV, but I tried to coach all of them to raise their level. Been there, done that, right? You want them to learn that process and have a chance to stand there and do it. I need them to go through the interview process, look at that, and be able to share their ideas with me. It's not just reserved for a speech. That's where people get tripped up about public speaking. Here are the forms of public speaking. Presentation is obvious. That's what I'm doing today. You all might have your own slides. You might have your own stories and thoughts you're trying to get across. Table of contents, whatever it might be. How about a sales call? Public speaking opportunity, right? Whether it's door to door or in front of people in a room. That's a public speaking opportunity that people don't think of. How about a conference call? Whether you're the leader or not, whether you speak or don't speak, that is a public speaking opportunity that you can't just wing it, you've got to work it. You've got to provide some sort of something in that meeting, on that call, to raise your value. Why are you there? Why do you matter? What's your story? What will you add? Why should I care? Conference calls are big. Staff meeting or a parent meeting? That's a public speaking opportunity. How do you carry yourself? You cannot control chaos, but you can control composure in chaotic feeling situations. I had one guy that I worked with in TV, I'll keep his name out of this. The great thing about sitting on a stage in a national TV audience and everything is going on, I got 2 earpieces in and I'm listening to the producer, the director, all these different things, and I'm delivering the message, and I got somebody sitting to my left, and maybe the graphic doesn't come up right, or they roll the video at the wrong time. That's life. That's real live TV. That's actually the fun of doing TV, is when it goes bad. How do you handle it? And I had this one person, guy, go to commercial break, he all up in arms, all upset. My gosh, they didn't do this, they didn't do that. I go, could you take a deep breath for a second? We're not curing cancer here. We're talking golf. Let's calm down and let's control ourselves. They should never see you sweat. I would tell people that work for me as directors or one level down, and they're managing other people, and it was very new to them, You want to come in and cry or be very upset, emotional as a guy or a woman? No problem. Come in, close the door. Do it all for me. That's fine. Once you walk back out that door, as a leader, an executive presence, you're straight. Because nobody pays attention to anybody when everything's going great. But when it hits the fan, all eyes are on you. They are all on you. Because people love to see how people handle those situations. To me, that's the most fun. How do I handle crisis? I got to write the crisis communications plan for the organization. A formal or media interview is another public speaking opportunity, obviously. You go in front of the media, you better know what you're going to say, regardless of the question. So back to that conversation that I was telling you earlier about the commissioner, what do you want them to know? ESPN actually contacted us after an interview was set up where he spent time with two writers in the Dallas market, Dallas Morning News and the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Did an interview that they weren't expecting. I said, you want the commissioner? They said, oh my gosh, are you serious? Yeah, I'll give him to you for 20 minutes. Perfect. He sits down and does that. ESPN reads the article in the Dallas Morning News, contacts us and says, we want to tell the story of the LPGA. Great. Then we had a meeting, and I played interviewer and asked all the questions that I thought that they were definitely going to ask, and then said, what do you want them to take away from it? He goes, what do you think of all that? I go, it's good, but what do you need? What's the call to action? What are we going to try to get? He goes, well, biggest thing I could get is I want a network TV deal, a bigger network TV deal. I go, well, let's get it. But you got to deliver that. We changed the whole thing around, made sure we had that message to be able to be delivered among the three things, regardless of what the questions were. And the next day on ESPN.com, obviously there was a TV interview, the headline was, Commissioner seeking network partners. Bingo. What do you want them to do? Every time you talk to people, where are they going? What do you want the students to do? What do you want the teachers and faculty to do? And an email is a public speaking opportunity as well. It really is. Scary. Not everybody's good at it. When it comes to emails in written communication, your goal should be to reduce time and the stress that goes with emails. How many people hate emails? I would get 400 emails a day. It's just overwhelming for everybody. If you send less, you get less. Decide what's important and how you can file it. I will caution you if you're writing an email to put CCs on there with a bunch of people. All you're doing is expanding the conversation and creating a longer trail. If you want to email all day long, fine. Throw 6 people on it and see what happens. It's like a group text. And that's the world our kids live in. I'm telling you, my daughter's going to get engaged via text. I think that's going to happen, right? Check your email at consistent times during the day. Be smart. Don't spend your whole day. You accomplish nothing if you just email all day long. 8 a.m. to 8:30, 9 to 9:15, whatever it is. Maybe a 15-minute break at lunch. End of the day. Other than that, remember, you teach people how to treat you, right? So if you email all day, what's their expectation? I'm going to get something back in 5 seconds. No. File it. Easy way to do it. Urgent. Do I have to get back immediately? Can it wait a little bit? Is it end of the day stuff? Is it end of the week stuff? Or is it, I'll get to it when I can, it's not urgent at all? Create that file for yourself, and then your day becomes a lot easier, because as those emails go in, you can file it right away. And then worry about the ones that are coming at the end of the day. But again, don't do it all day long. Do it in your time that you set aside for yourself. You want better emails. Keep the subject line brief and informative. Make it actionable. Tell people what you want them to do. In the body of the email, make sure you check grammar. When it comes to a public speaking opportunity that's tied to an email, which they are now, I'm telling you, grammar is big. People want to read that, and they're going to say something about you. Watch being critical of somebody in an email. You have to provide context, because we don't see the verbal cues or the real communication skills of me being able to deliver that with a smile on my face, or me perhaps becoming excited about something. The other thought that I've always remembered from college was, if you're smiling, they're smiling. Very true. I worked at a store, and my boss always told me, you need to smile more on TV. Okay, thank you. But it's true. It's true. So watch that. Keep it short, 3 paragraphs. If it's more than 3 paragraphs, just call them. Because nobody has time to read all that stuff. We already talked about 8-second impressions and 10-minute attention spans. Now add 400 emails or whatever it might be, and you're trying to tell stories on email? No way. Then double check. The last thing that goes in there is the person's name in the to box. That's not the first thing, because that email is being edited by you. Goes out and you're like, once the toothpaste is out of the tube, it ain't going back in. So, here's a sample email. This is what I would do. I tried to keep them short. I wrote it for you all with either being a teacher or a coach, and gives you some options. I hope you and your student are off to a good start as the school year begins again. I know that I'm quite excited to be teaching and coaching either history or Royals football again this year. Now here are a few things regarding my expectations of the year for the students or the student athletes. Bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. That keeps me concise and I can get that email out quicker. And it's also easier to digest. Remember, you're giving it to somebody else to read. They don't have time. Chicken McNugget Society, right? USA Today. We're not reading the whole New York Times. With all that said, our first test or our game is on this date. I expect a terrific year in our classroom for our team. Appreciate your support of TFA or TFA athletics. Remembering that, I only put that on there because that gives you an opportunity for the message that you as an entire organization want to get out there. That we are rising above, or whatever it is that the school is saying. Christ-like in everything we do. That allows you to be consistent across the board in the message that you're delivering. Not saying you need to do that, saying for you to consider doing that kind regards. From whom? Anybody have a question on that? Okay? Simple. Couple of tips. Too many means none are important. If you're sending out a constant barrage of emails to parents, I'm sorry. I will say this is my one pet peeve that I can talk about TFA. I get bombarded by emails. And so I never really know which ones are the truly important ones. And if you do that to people, it's just like if I sent out a press release every day at the LPGA. Well, which one's really important? Which one am I supposed to cover? Am I supposed to cover all of them? If I send a ton, I've really sent none. So be selective on that. You got to grab my attention, keep it simple. Remember, I'm getting a ton of emails, so you want me to read yours. And imagine being on the receiving end of that email. What's the emotion going to be like? Read it through one more time. And you represent more than just yourself with that email. As a leader in the organization. You represent other people. You are a brand ambassador, and it matters what you say. So, equipping and empowering your team is important. And as you all talk to folks that are teachers or leaders within the organization, how do we do that? How do we get them to feel like true ambassadors? How do they carry out our message? Well, number one, you've got to communicate what your vision is. You've got to let them know what that vision is. Do they know the organizational story? Are they aware of it? And is there a succession plan, actually? Because if I'm empowering Will Cohen as not the athletic director at the time, but to think bigger as a person and to grow him into the role when the AD leaves, so he feels as though he is a part of a build and he knows what he's going for, that makes him work all the harder. And you know that the person that's at the top of that escalator in the career path is going to step off with somebody that's been trained, mentored, skilled, knows the vision, etc., can step right in. One of the biggest things we worked on was our succession plan of our executive team. Identify the rising stars. Put them in positions to give them opportunities to succeed and fail. We never got our shot blocked very often. I told people, go to the rim with authority. Bring me everything you got. I'm weird. I gave people on my team a light bulb at the beginning of the year in 2015. Everybody got a light bulb at our staff meeting. They're like, what is this? It said, what's your bright idea? And I told them, each and every one of you is going to come up with something during the year that's yours, that you think is a great idea. And when that light bulb goes off, so to speak. Wherever that is, whenever that is, I want you to walk into my office or call me on the phone and bring me the light bulb, and you will own that idea and that concept. You want to talk about giving somebody the chance to have accountability, authority, responsibility, and opportunity? Give them something to own. The greatest gift somebody can get in an organization, to me, is the opportunity to take something that's given to them and learn to provide back something that's better than the other person expected when they gave it to them in the first place. Does that make sense? That was my challenge to everybody. Give me back something better than I expected when I gave it to you in the first place. Interns come in, you're not just punching the clock for 8 hours. I want you at the end of your internship to be able to walk away with some tangible evidence that you provided some value to the organization, that you can actually go, here, this is what I did. And not just say, yeah, I worked 3 months at the organization, it was great. What'd you do? I mean, I did a lot of things. Okay. What's the one thing you did? Another great book, The One Thing. Okay? Any questions? You got to know the organization's story. That's for your leadership to figure out and everybody to understand it across the board. We want to do something great for TFA, put every faculty member in the room and give me the top 3 athletes from every sport and give them to me. And then let's talk to them about what the story is. And let's create ambassadors and empower them to go next level for the organization. Because your star football player and your girls soccer player star that's all state are just as important as Brian or Patrick or any of the leaders. Sentinel comes, they're getting talked to. What's the message? How do we shape that? I went to a Wofford basketball game because Fletcher McGee's my son's best friend, and I watched Fletcher McGee do his interviews, and I've been kind of coaching him for about the past 4 years. And Mom will send me, some videos and whatnot, and Fletch, what's the story? What are you delivering besides the fact that you scored 24 points, grabbed 6 rebounds, and made a 3 at the end of the game? What's Wofford want out of it? What do you want out of it? What do you want people to say about you? If it's just about the stats, I just tell players, I don't care that you shot 66, you ought to. Your name's on your bag. You have a tour card. You're better than me and everybody else. Now what's your story? Why am I supposed to care about that 66? Where's the next level of the story? So at the core, who are we as an organization? And what sets us apart, and where do we want to go? What is the goal? What is the vision? Everybody has to know that. Jerry Chambers can't be a guy that knows it, and you don't know it. That's not fair. If I can't sleep at night, my team needs to not sleep at night. If I have issues that we're trying to get to the next level with, they need to be a part of it so they can feel the success at the end. Organizational ambassadors, the top leaders, as I just said, can't be the only ones to know the story. The top leaders need to travel the story outside of TFA, find ways to get on panels. How does a communications team at TFA take the leaders in the organization and put them amongst great opportunities throughout the state to deliver the TFA story? Same thing in Orlando. And individual brands build the organizational brand. Y'all need to step up. Can you step up, Will?
Absolutely.
So when you're delivering tweets or social media posts, what are you actually trying to get people to remember about it? Is the 3-2 victory in a soccer game the real story? Yeah, it's a good story. What's the next level? All part of a athletic department that's on the rise with 6 state titles in the last 2 years, etc. Pictures on tweets, video on Instagram, video on Facebook. I had a heart-to-heart with Coach Kennard about a year ago about things he was posting on Facebook, because he would say, Miami in the house today, UCF in the house today, Missouri in the house today. Who are you trying to reach, Coach? But I want kids to know we've got, okay, what's the audience on Facebook? Where are kids? Coach, throw that on Snapchat, and if you can't do it, find somebody that can. Take one of your greatest students that wants to be in communications or marketing and allow them to run social media for you. You be the mentor, you can screen it, but it needs to be on Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter. Now, if I want to reach parents to tell them that Florida's in the house, I'm going to go Facebook or Facebook Live. It's not that hard, but it's got to have a strategy. You've got to know where you want to go and how you're going to get there. It can't just be random tweets, texts, all that stuff. It's got to be a part of a strategic, creative communications plan. We got to leverage those top students, and those student athletes are the greatest ambassadors you got. Honestly ask yourself, what have you done with Fletcher McGee and Garrett Williams and Deluzio and all the great athletes that have come through here? What about your valedictorians that are going on to the next level that might be doctors or nurses or whatever they might be in certain fields? Their testimonials, their reviews, their experience at your institution is actually what will drive the next level of students to make sure that this place is full and you're going to be able to raise campaign money because you need a bigger building again. You have to think bigger. Rise above ordinary. Ordinary is what everybody does. How can we be extraordinary? How can we take it to the next level? Ordinary does not work anymore. Let's use career as an escalator. Think about this for a second. Everybody's in this room, some are younger, but think about your parents. My dad worked for the same organization, a bank in Chicago, for 38 years. At the end of the deal, he got the retirement, the bonus, the pension, and the gold watch. All right? Loyalty was big. Loyalty's not that big anymore. People change jobs and all that stuff. So now let's go back to 2009 and let's think about the escalator. You have all the CEOs and the top executives at the top of the escalator. Just a notch below are the higher management folks. Then you got middle management. Then you got the people that are just starting. And then you got people that are coming out of college. Okay, if the guys at the top or the females at the top are afraid to get off the escalator because the market crashed and everything went to you know what, can anybody else move up? Can Will Cohen get to be the AD? No. Now put yourself in the mind and the reality of a college student who can't even get on the escalator to begin with. So, what do? You got to find a way to be indispensable. So when somebody is laying off people, you're the last one kicked off the escalator, not the first. What value do you bring outside of what everybody else brings? Where is your inner genius? Where is your top skill? What can you do to make that difference? We need to make them travel the story. We need to make them understand social media and marketing. And we need to make sure that TFA is extraordinary in the eyes of everybody that's out there, not just another run-of-the-mill school. Every tournament on the LPGA schedule, I challenge them. Don't just be another event. Be a happening. Make sure that everybody that goes in there gets a first impression and leaves with something.